Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So a couple days ago I finished Caught in the Revolution by Helen Rappaport, and I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and share some of my sort of overarching big picture thoughts on this book. I'm not going to go into super detail just because I think that a super detailed review is going to be a very long video and may not be incredibly interesting. And so I want to share just some of my biggest takeaways from this book. So firstly, the biggest thing that stood out to me about this book, and I think the biggest reason most people read it and the way it's marketed, is it is about the foreigners who were living in Petrograd at the end of 1917, so during the October Revolution, and then on into 1918, into the February Revolution, the Bolshevik revolutions in Russia. And so right from the start, you get a really interesting perspective into the October and February revolutions, seeing them from a very wealthy foreign point of view is very interesting. So Petrograd is St. Petersburg. During the start of World War I, it was renamed Petrograd to try to Russify the more Germanic Berg at the end of Petersburg. Petrograd would later go on to be renamed as Leningrad, and it would stay that way until 1991, when then it was when it was switched back to St. Petersburg. So sort of the naming of the city has sort of been up and down, which I find very interesting. And so we follow a lot of eyewitnesses throughout this book, and in fact, in the front, I'm going to try to flip through here. There is a character list, which I think is very, very helpful, and I love when they do that. A glossary of eyewitnesses, it's called. And so it starts here on this page, and there are 4 pages, I believe, 4. Let me look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 10 pages. I was way off. But there's a glossary of eyewitnesses, which is super helpful with the individual's name, the date period that they were in Petrograd, and then what they accomplished while they were there, or for what reason they were there, which is really helpful because there are a lot of just sort of one-off journal entries or snippets of letter communications or telegraph communications. And so it's very helpful to be able to go back and reference the names of who's who. There are a couple of individuals who are sort of staple eyewitnesses throughout the course of the narrative. For instance, the ambassadors from France, America, and England are 3 sort of staple figures, as they had quite a lot of written communication, and they, sort of for posterity's sake, wrote a lot about their experiences and about, sort of their interaction with what was going on, which is very interesting. And sort of being in St. Petersburg, the reason that most of these wealthy people were there is St. Petersburg was somewhat the melting pot in Russia. It was the window to the west, gate to the west, sort of city when it was originally built by Peter the Great in the 1700s. The idea was to westernize Russia and to open up Russia to the rest of Europe. And so St. Petersburg really became sort of this melting pot, this mingling of Eastern and Western cultures. And so a lot of the wealthy Europeans, when they would, want to go on vacation or have a new setting, St. Petersburg was exotic enough to be appealing, while the commodities and the culture were close enough to home for them to feel comfortable, which I thought was really interesting. And there's even a lot of description of the Nevsky Prospect in St. Petersburg, and sort of how that strip really became very much American, French, and English more than Russian, and a lot of description of the bookshops and the bakeries and the movie theaters and the taverns and the opera houses and all this stuff that opened up along the Nevsky Prospect as sort of more and more people from outside came in and really brought their own elements of comfort and culture to the city, particularly the Nevsky Prospect, which was the the wealthiest area in St. Petersburg, which I thought was very interesting. There is a decent amount of sort of information as to the Bolshevik revolutions and Lenin and Trotsky. However, there is not as much of the sort of analysis of the Bolshevik Revolution as there is the counter-analysis of the experiences of the wealthy foreign population who was living in the city at that time. And so if you're looking for a book that is very explanatory of the Bolshevik Revolution and sort of the political side of things, this is not necessarily a great place to go because there isn't a whole lot of that. But if you have a decent understanding of the Bolshevik Revolution, of the October and February revolutions, if you understand a decent amount of what was going on, then this is a fantastic companion piece of being able to see sort of the human interest story side of things, which I thought was fantastic. I have read a decent amount on the Bolshevik revolutions, so I felt fairly like I was able to understand what was going on without having to have a whole lot laid out to me. But I was able to tell that if you didn't have a good background, it may be a little bit too loose of a narrative given to sort of the opposition and what was going on. But I really don't view that as a flaw at all. It's not really even an issue just because of the way that this book is structured. It is structured so that it is about the people, and it's not necessarily only about the event, which I thought was an interesting angle. And also there's so many great descriptions of St. Petersburg throughout this book, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It's such an interesting city to read about. And there are two different picture galleries in this book. I don't know if you will be able to see the lines of where the two ones are, but there are some fantastic photographs. And of course the cover here is adorned with some really interesting photographs. And so that's always fantastic to be able to sort of see the people you're talking about. And there's some really dramatic shots of the city too, which really bring it to life. So all in all, an absolutely fantastic read. I could go on and talk about a whole lot of other things, but I don't want to sort of ramble on. I think this is a fantastic book. If it looks interesting to you, please do read it. You will be very happy that you did. Helen Rappaport is by far one of my favorite writers of historical fiction, particularly for Russian history, but also for Victorian history. She has The Magnificent Obsession, which is a fantastic book about Prince Albert and Queen Victoria's relationship. And then she has all of her books on Russia. This is the second to last of her books on Russia. She has one more that came out, I believe earlier this year, called After the Romanovs, about the sort of the fallout of Russian culture after the Bolshevik takeover, essentially. So anyway, I want to stop there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you would like, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now, and happy reading.